Yeah, basically, has Pyro commercialized any of its processes lately?
I think the Drossrite is one of them. The Navy reactor is the second one of them. I'm not in liberty to say more, but I think also that there's more of those plasma torch process that have been winning competitions all over the world over this. So, and they do have a track record of doing it. And the Drossrite contract and the plasma torch for metal, those were big competition against, you know, companies all over the world. Those are tenders fight over multi-billion-dollar companies. So if their technology wins there, you know they have a track record of doing it. So yes, they have it. Plus the plasma atomization powder, you know, their powder, they invented the technology and they came back into it. They've signed a deal with Albert Duval, which is not a small player into the field. So that's for Europe, and also those things are going on. Okay, other question?
Yeah. Actually, here's an interesting one, Bernard. Basically, can you comment on Quebec government intentions and support going forward? For example, do we plan to work with Hydro-Quebec?
We will. I can't really discuss too much of the specificity, but because of the COVID, something that we should have announced by now, we should have been able, but was slowed down with the COVID. There are a groupment of R&D research and technology companies that are associated in some type of groups, which are then, they do tender competitions to see who gains, which technology gains grants. There was one of those such tenders that was in December of last year. The results came up in March. The results were very, very positive for HPQ Pyro and the university we're working for. Unfortunately, because of the COVID, you know, the issuance of the funds and the freedom of the funds, aka the right for us to issue a press release is blocked until I think it's be starting of July. Everything will restart, so we'll know more at that moment. So that's one of the issues. Next question.
Well, here's an interesting one. Actually, HPQ had already signed a couple of NDAs. Are you continuing to attract more interest from interested parties?
We've basically attracted interest from actually just yesterday we got even more interest from a different group of groups. Honestly, we haven't been doing that much marketing. They do the research and find us. Now with this new presentation, with the pilot plan, the equipment being ready, it's going to start going out more. With the work we're going to be doing at the university, starting to produce reports, it's going to attract more. You know, it's there. We're talking to the big people. We know what they want, and we believe we can deliver it. We just have to start delivering at it. It's, you know, that's sort of like, it's sort of a dance between the two groups of everything else. But, you know, the plan was really for us to be very aggressive on the marketing. Unfortunately, COVID just came at the same time.
One interesting question, basically, what can be sort of the common need specifications for the porous wafer? Porous wafer SI.
Porous wafer SI. It's very interesting because it's sort of a completely different strategy of building batteries and everything else. So a lot of the research has been done mostly on the powders. That's really what it's been pushing. You know, we're going to have to go, we have to sort of like design and test everything from scratch. And that's sort of been the problem with us, is that since they were using basically electronic grade material, they were accustomed to one size, and how can we fit the one size? So those are mostly like mechanical issues we're working on resolving and getting that doing. But once we start to be able to do it, it'll be pretty exciting. Next.
Right.
How many? Oh, we're up to 101 participants. 101 participants? Yeah, wow. I feel better now. I increased the. What else?
Well, one common question, which is to answer basically, when will we see revenue? That's often a recurring question.
We'll see revenue. Basically, our type of companies are valued much more on the potential in the revenue stream, because it gets to be two type of valuation. Okay, Right now, if we have if I look at my competitors that are privately held, their valuation are much higher just on the potential. Okay. But I've always thought of designing the company to be able to generate significant revenue. It's one of the reasons why I'm very interested in nanoparticles. Is even though I can make it very, very cheap at the beginning, I don't have to sell it that cheap. This is why I'm very, very cautious about giving an idea how cheap I can make it, because I sort of have a feeling it's going to be like everything else. The end buyer is always going to try to squeeze you to have the cheapest price possible. So revenue stream, I think we will be in a position by next year to start giving good indication what that's coming along. But I also believe strongly that if the value generation that we can generate for battery manufacture is there might be some people that just don't want those numbers to become public and might be interested in taking us out. It's a very strong possibility. As a board, I think we'll have to discuss about shareholder protection right and those type of issues as we move forward. It wasn't an issue until now, but it's getting to be because the nano part is really there. Okay. Is HPQ going to spin off? Oh, somebody saw the research about the creation of HPQ Nano-powders. Should all go back and take a look at my answer on Agoracom. I was very specific about it. People have to be patient. We'll get more detail. But I will just say this. We learn, it's not a question of spinning it out. It's more a question is that because this is a work that we're doing in parallel with PyroGenesis, it's much simpler to start from the beginning. Everything that's related to nanopowders in a specific entity that's 100% owned by HPQ. So it's much more to simplify our life as things go on, because if we do a joint venture, then you get, so it's really more, and at this moment, it's more an administrative, become clear as we move forward. And yes, if we were eventually to spin it out, or if somebody wanted to invest in it, it's much easier to have it from the beginning created as a separate entity. Because one thing we learned when we spit out the Bose Goldfield is if you don't spin it out from the beginning, spitting out the asset on paper looks easy. Well, trust me, if accountant and lawyer can complicate something, they'll find a way to do it. And anything else interesting? Oh, we've gone down to 99%, 99 participants. Darn, somebody left. Was it cash rain or burn? Well, I think we've demonstrated we're yeah, I'm seeing them. So any other exciting question? That's all we have. I expect we get more questions. I think I answered some of the question I got before coming in. I think people will realize now that the silicone for batteries has always been part of our business plan. It's just that when we started into this, it wasn't clear what type of silicone the market was looking for. You would talk to battery manufacturers, everything else. So I think at the beginning, I really thought you can just plug in silicone batteries and replace graphite and you'll get the same result. Then the problem with the expansion became real. And now that the nano solution has been found, the question is how can you make nano silicone powders cheaply? And that's where we're really coming in with a very, very good solution to it. Okay.
Hey, Bernard, it's Daryl here. If I can maybe comment as well on that question about when are we going to see revenue?
Oh, I think Daryl. Well, wait. I shut down my volume so I don't hear you. Daryl, you talking?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to add. Somebody was asking about when are we going to see revenue, and I think it's very important to say very clearly that all of the efforts that we're working on are towards commercialization. I think you've said that a number of times, but I think to answer that question very specifically, so we are focused on moving towards commercialization in all of our steps. And we've had obviously conversations with industry participants that are interested in our product. And the fact that we're working with some industrial partners now and designing this process to sort of suit their needs really shows that we're focused much stronger on revenue generation and commercialization over the next 12 to 15 months in this company.
All right. We're just looking again the question and answer. A lot of people are curious about nano silicone powder. I'll go back to what I said. Everything will become clear. I've explained what administrative reason behind this. When will you announce the companies you are working with? Well, no, you basically, the question between NDAs, and I think I've explained that many times. It's, you know, it's just the beginning of a discussion, so we can't really announce them. And often when you, how can I say, the bigger the fish you're talking with, the lesser they want you to talk about them. So it's just I can't really say more than that. It's the way it is. So unfortunately, I understand that everybody, like I would love to, but this is a long-term, this is a marathon that we're doing. You know, I think when we started this, we did the typical mistake of non-runners doing a marathon. We started to sprint at the beginning, but now I think we've gotten down to our pace, which is very, very good. And I think it's going to be more and more news, more and more news flow, more and more information coming along. Yeah. What's really happening with it?
There's one interesting question, and it's a hello?
Yeah,
there's one interesting question somebody's asking here, and I think it's an important one. He's asking basically about us selling Nano-powders or working on our own anode design. And I think that's an important part to specify. But maybe you could expand on that.
Yeah,
that basically we're not here to create the next battery. We're just here to create the material that the industry will need. You could expand on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's actually a very good question. At this specific moment, okay, since this is recorded, and I want somebody to come out. At this specific moment, the business plan for us is we want to be the silicone manufacturers of all battery manufacturers. Okay? Because what the discussion I've had is every battery manufacturer has their own silicone recipes. But the problem they have is once they've done it, how do we scale it up? And then they're stuck with it's sort of a chicken and the egg. They all have recipes, different recipes to make great batteries with silicone. And then when they look at the costing of silicone, they're saying, we can't make money doing that. So for the time being, my focus is to being the lowest cost producer of silicone for batteries. Does that mean at one point we won't end up developing our own recipe? Yes, one of the projects we're working with the university professors develop his own recipe. But at the end, every battery manufacturer is going to have their own recipe for it, how they do it, their own patented process, their own private right. So what we want to be able to be is to be able to say, okay, you want this specific distribution of nano silicone for your battery to work? Okay, we'll deliver it for you. You want that one? We'll do it for you. Instead of saying, this is what, you know, and that I think is going to put us in a better position. And I actually had some discussion with battery manufacturing. They thought that was a much wiser position to be in and try to, because if you try to be a battery manufacturer, then you're sort of competing against the other boards, against everybody else. If you're trying to be this, if you're trying to resolve the issue, that is the problem, all the battery manufacturers, you suddenly have much more clients that are going to be looking at what you're doing. That's my sort of thought. But, you know, don't hold me to it. I might change my mind in 3 weeks or 3 months. Any other exciting question? The outstanding shares are increasingly high. Do you consider reverse split down the road? No. I love the comment about extremely high. You know, it was extremely high when we were 4 cents and a half. Well, suddenly we went up to 25 cents. It was still there. It generates volume, generates interest. Let me say that when you run a publicly traded company, you run 2 companies at the same time. There's the company building the process, which we're doing, and there's the market side too. And there's some investors that like, you know, this color type of things, which is small flow, blah, blah, blah. And some others don't really mind, like the high volume, high liquidity type of it. I think we have a story. I think at the fundamental is the market cap that plays into it. And I think we have room to move. We have room to have a significant market cap. I don't think it's a really big issue. Some people count the fully diluted numbers as a big issue, but remember, if they all get executed, it's 10 million shares. It's 10 point some more million dollars of bank account. There's a convertible debenture with Investissement Quebec, which we're now in the position where it would make sense for us to buy it back next year. So it is for some investors a drawback, but for some other it isn't. So I'll just leave it at that. RPR available engineer resource slowing progress down. Are we at the mercy of PyroGenesis? Well, yes, we are. But they're not slowing it down, okay? Remember, PyroGenesis is our largest individual shareholder, okay? So it is a fallacy. We would not be here, okay, if we would not be developed. We wouldn't have this technology. We wouldn't have access to this. So people to complain about, you know, is PyroGenesis left, right, and center? We have a very good business relationship. We're able to basically use their engineering knowledge. Do you have any? I don't think investors realize how much it would cost a company like HPQ to build that type of brain capacity. Okay, it's not worth it. So we're able to work it. It's not a question of do we split up on everything else. A lot of the question mark comes from us asking PyroGenesis a specific problem, how we resolve it, just like all the thing we did for the nano reactor. Second point that people can always arise is the QRR. She started the project to make the the silicon metal. And I think I showed in the presentation that we, HPQ's management, quickly came to the realization that the short-term monetary advantage of developing the quartz reactor were not as big as the one is developing the nanotechnology. But as I keep saying, the primary technology, PUREVAP QRR, is our ace in the hole that will guarantee or develop or secure our development as we move into nano reactor. Okay, all of my competitors in the nano space are looking for that silicon material. And trust me, if you're trying to negotiate with a low specialty metal, a Walker and everybody else, they're not gonna, they're gonna try to steal your technology for nothing and move on. So we're much better the way we are. So I feel very comfortable with the decision we take. We will get the QRR working and operational, but and as I've shown, even if we produce what, you know, we're talking what? We're talking about doing, you know, $8,000 a month of monthly revenues versus a 300 kilogram. Multiply that by just $1,000 a kilogram for something selling 1,000. You make the math so much better. It's a much wiser deployment of our capital. And one of the things the capital is basically HPA PyroGenesis engineering capital.
Bernard, can I add a bit to that?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, I think
you can always walk me back.
Another important comment to add to what Bernard just said is that what we've also learned is that there's a lot of flexibility in this process that we're working on with Pyro, and we've come up with other products that we haven't pursued yet. But these are these nanoparticles and powders and you know, those related pieces that we're working on right now are the most important and the most commercially viable at this point. But there are several others, and these are low volume, high specialty, very high priced, high value added products. So they're out of the work that we've been doing with PyroGenesis have come out several new opportunities, and the nanoparticles is the most exciting one and the one that we're pursuing right now, but there are others. So we are becoming very much a specialty innovation company, as the title page on the presentation really states. And the QRR reactor ability to take quartz and turn it into, you know, metallurgically high-grade silicon is a stepping stone towards all of these. So it's a very core part of our business.
I've just seen another question. The question email. Oh, Apollon sort of answered the answer about Apollon. It's like, it's just the normal process. COVID stopped a bit of our thing. You know, the plan was that we would have met 2 months ago, but we've met through the internet. So sometimes it slows down a bit the process. I see that Justin just asked us a question. What does HPQ plan to jump back into targeting solar market with 4N plus SOG? As Daryl just alluded, we have come to the realization that the nano silicon material is a much higher value proposition than the solar grade silicon. As I've said it also right now, expansion of the solar business is going to be sort of limited by the problem related to the battery, to the energy storage space. So it's not really a high priority for us at this moment. We've sort of discovered the QRR ability to go 4N gives us a ace in the hole in the battery space. And if, you know, eventually it might go look into it, but trust me, the potential for the market and what we're doing in nano, you know, far outweighs whatever we dreamt of at the beginning in the solar part of the business. Anything else? Oh, wait, more. Sorry about this. Would you consider selling PUREVAP share in the future to help fund the new plants? Well, sort of like internal business decision. You know, we play around our financing of everything else. That's sort of like yes, and we've already done, so that's not a big deal. Can PR walk away with HPQ from HPQ and go with another company? No. If you look at the way the agreements are designed, especially with the QRR, we own the intellectual property, so they can't really walk away. I think the fear is more from Pyro's side is will we be buy out by a big boy that would just basically want to put on the shell the technology we're developing. I don't think it's going to be the other way around. I've been working enough years with Pyro's management to know that that's not really what they're about when we're developing and everything else. So, thank you. Do you think HPQ is a takeover target? Maybe now, maybe next week. I would just like to address something that I've kept seeing often coming in about the discussion about, you know, Pyro taking us over, which is sort of like, I find that discussion to be, you know, sort of like almost comical, because the same people are going to making the comments, when is Pyro going to spin out their additive division? In a certain way, HPQ has sort of grafted itself into a spin out of PyroGenesis. It's not really there. It's sort of an hybrid type of situation. But that's really where it is. So I just want to address that. It's really much more that we're working together to develop this, which is going to be mutually beneficial for both of us. One of the other key points I want to address is I've studied many of the failures of junior companies that want to go in technology. And I think the problem has always been the learning curve. In working with Pyro, we've been able to alleviate some of those learning curves. And that didn't stop us from having issues where it took longer than we thought. So there's a lot of R&D what we're doing. Any other questions? Hello, Bernard. Oh, there's one. Hello, Bernard. I've already asked this question in the email. Are you allowed to Apollon? Are you in pre-talk with Elon Musk? Is it Elon? Elon? Regarding batteries and everything else. Listen, I'm not allowed. I understand your question. Even if I was, I wouldn't be allowed. This is not a forum for any of those type of discussion. This would be issuing a press release if there was something like this at this moment. So I will not comment on any rumors. Prove or disprove. Next question. Another question. I'm getting comfortable with this. Oh, there is more here. Is more collaboration with the university in hand? Yes. As I think, as I've alluded in that regard, participating in universities, we're working with Professor Lionel Rouet. We've submitted, all of us, PyroGenesis, HPQ, and Professor Rouet, we submitted a grant request, which, from what I'm reading, we got very positive reply to, but it's been stalled by the COVID. So, you know, eventually they'll be moving along, but there's more university interested coming along. You know, we're going to be discussing, we'll be open to participate with everybody. I see the one thing I want to do the most is wait as long as possible before we tie ourselves up to anybody. So I understand a lot of people says when you got an off-take agreement, when you got those type of agreement, financier often demand off-take agreement too early in the development of a technology company like ours. And the earlier you are doing those type of off-take might look good on the market for a little bit of while, but in the long term it's negative to the company. So that's all what it is. So what's there? I've been watching Pyro for 15 years. The price is low. Oh, I don't care about. Do you technically put in a nano-powder? Yes, I do have an input into it. Surprisingly, I do understand 3/4 of technical aspects have been going on. I've been having an input. Yes, we actually, HPQ does have a lot of technical input. We're the one that, no, we have technical input. We're in discussion, everything else, but just not how to develop and invent the systems, but how to market it and design it. Anything else? What's this one? Our share price is low for what they've been. I'm gonna make some money. Sorry, I'm not gonna reply about short term. Is there any other question? If not, I think we've covered everything. It's gonna be a long enough video for people to watch my boring face all over that long time. Last round of question. Anybody typing? Oh, there you go. Do you believe the PUREVAP Nano's ability to scale up to manufacturing once proven on Gen 3 has significant cheaper silicon nanometers? Okay, the answer is this. Do you believe that the $300 to $100 selling price target is going to speed up the development? Yes. Because as the quote I put in the company, it's not a question of can it be done? The question is, can it be made cheap enough to build trillions of them? And that's literally what it is. If it goes back to solar, I think energy storage expectations or growth pattern are way undervalued. If you go back to, I think 10 years ago about the solar industry, there was all these big brainiac companies from Three Brains and everything else, and from the biggest brokerage firm that gave a projection about what would be the production capacity of solar energy. And there was Greenpeace that came in with a number that was 10 times above. And at the end result, Greenpeace number were the lowball numbers. So what I'm basically saying, I'm not advocating anything about Greenpeace, is I think the reality is going to be 10 times bigger than people anticipate. And I think the real big stumbling block that we're having right now is how to make nano silicon cheap enough to be used in batteries. And that's literally the problem. So it was sort of serendipitous that we bothered PyroGenesis, and they came up with a process to do the nano part from the beginning. And I know the costs. When you ask about my input, I put a lot of cost pressure into the discussion, and the process was designed for that. So I really do believe that if there is a capacity to produce the nano silicon and start integrating it into battery space, it will expand. And remember, a lot of the government right now, and lo and behold, in the solar industry, it was government dictate that basically generated its startup. After COVID, a lot of people, government want to invest into green technology, renewable energies, those type of energy. So we're incredibly well positioned in this regard because silicon is seen as the next big step. And the beauty of it, the barriers to entry to be competitors against us are massive. In the sense that since we started to develop our first capacity to go from quartz to silicon metal, we control that part of the equation. Yes, there can be tons of other people that can say, I have this more brilliant way of making nanopart silicon, maybe. But they're always going to have that problem. So at the end, we're always going to be winning. If you look at the solar business, at the beginning, nobody cared about the price they paid for the metallurgy grade silicon metal they were converting. And at the end, it became a stumbling block. So companies like Walker ended up buying their own metallurgy grade silicon metal just in the hope of reducing a bit their cost. And we already have the cheaper process. So that's just the point I'm saying. So I think it will shorten down the 10 years because Silla's technologies and everything else, they use very complicated process. So, anything else? Do we need to apply for more patent? There's always going to be a need for more patent when we come up with new brilliant ideas. But I'll leave that to the technical gurus at Pyro. How long is the reactor protected by patent? Standard patent, standard thing. Then you always do some twinkling up and new inventions, and you add on to it. But I'm not that much a patent expert. I trust that more Pyro. Patent coming. Okay. No, question is, as you're saying, your process has eliminated the cracking problem in silicon. What our presentation clearly shows is that if you can make a nano silicon less than 150 nanometers, okay, you've resolved the cracking problems in silicon for batteries. So if you want to look that way, and we feel very comfortable, we're not going to have an issue making less than 150 nanometers type of material. So yes, in a certain way, it looks like we've resolved it, and we'll know much more when we have the process started. So that's why I want to get that started as soon as possible. All right. Is there any other question? Okay, on this, I would like to thank you all for having participated into our first ever webinar. First ever webinar. And on this, I will let everybody go and have their own merry way. And we will, this presentation will be available on our website eventually as we, no, the presentation is available. This question and answer period will be there. And maybe if there's enough demand for French-speaking people, maybe I'll do another webinar just in French for that. Maybe I'll do a French webinar if people are interested in this. Just send me email info@HPQ Silicon. S'il y a des gens qui sont intéressés que je refasse ça en français, c'est vrai, c'est très stupide de ma part de le dire en anglais. S'il y a des gens qui sont intéressés que je le fasse en français, peut-être que vous pourriez nous écrire une question. S'il y a assez de demandes d'intérêt, je ferai peut-être un autre webinaire, mais juste en français. Merci. All right. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour.
Thank you. Merci.
Bye.
Bye.